The three pillars of Kuo Lien Ying's Tai Chi are the universal pose, which I presented in an earlier video, his stretching routine, and his original Guang Ping form, which I'll cover in future lessons. In this video, we're going to cover his stretching routine, and I'm only going to cover the first 4 or 5 stretches so that the lesson won't be too long. And then in the next video, I'll cover the remaining stretching routines. In the stretching routine, they should be done in the order that I'm presenting because there's a gradual progression in the stretches. The first exercise will be waist rotations. Put your hands in the small of your back to warm up your internal organs, like this. Keep your back erect. Keep your legs straight. The knees don't have to be locked. And you want to keep your head centered over your feet. The feet are placed together. And you want to just make small circles about the size of about a foot or less. This is the first exercise, and it's just to basically warm up your body, warm up your internal organs. Try to keep the head centered over the feet. Try not to just move the center like a hula hoop type of motion, but the motion should be like that. Straight upper body, really straight legs. I usually do 10 in one direction, and then change 10 in the opposite direction. When I first learned this, Sifu's wife, Simu, told me that we should do it 32 times in each direction to equal 64 or 64 movements in the Tai Chi form. But generally, I just do it until I feel nice and stretched out. Again, these exercises should be done in the order that I'm showing you as they progressively get more strenuous. This is the first exercise, waist rotations. The next exercise we're going to do are hip rotations. So you're going to place your feet about shoulder width apart and hands on the hip joint, right where the pivot point is. Placing your hands, again, placing the hands where you want to focus your attention. And on this one, you're going to go straight across on the front side and semicircle on the back side, like that. Again, keeping your head centered over the middle of your feet. Again, from this direction here, straight across, halfway around. Again, do 10 in one direction, and then 10 in the opposite direction for about 3 sets, about 30. Keeping the head focused above the center between the 2 feet. If you look at a spot in the distance and just kind of focus on it, that helps to keep your head in the same position. It's not super critical, but just don't move your head back and forth like this. Again, this is a small movement exercise. The second exercise, first one with the waist rotation, and then now we're doing the hips. The hands are just lightly touching the hips. They don't need to be pressing in. You're just kind of, again, using your hands to focus on the spot that you're stretching out. The knees can be just slightly bent. They don't have to be locked. And again, keeping the back erect but not arched. So on the back side, I'm not going to do the full amount because I'm just doing the lesson to show you how to do it. Again, do these in order. So the first one will be the waist rotations, and the second one will be the hip rotations. There's a gradual progress in the strenuous quality of each exercise. So you should do them in the order that I'm showing them in. To help keep your head in one place, focus on something in the distance, and you can see that if your head is moving, it doesn't have to be real strict. You can move a little bit, but just generally don't move your head with the body. So that's the hip rotations. The third exercise in the stretching routine are the knee rotations. And so you're going to keep your back flat and make small rotations with the knee. You don't have to lock your knees on the back part of the rotation. You keep them slightly flexed. The main point is keeping your back nice and flat. I like to look up, but you can look down as well. Looking down, people tend to arch round their back. So looking up helps keep the back flat. Again, like the other two rotations, try to keep the feet are together. Try to keep your head centered over the feet. This is taught to beginners. Keeping the head centered over the feet, which is one of the principles in Tai Chi, is right off the beginning student has to learn that head position over the feet for balance. You're not leaning on your hands on your knees, just again, like the other two, you're putting the hands on the knee joint to help you focus and warm up that joint. So in the first one where you're doing the waist rotation, the hand is warming the internal organs. On the second one, we're doing the hip rotations, the hand is focusing and warming the joint that you're stretching. For the third one, on the knees, hands just slightly on the knees. Basically, you're doing the rotation without leaning on your knees. So that's knee rotations. This next one I'm showing you is one that I've like to do and one I teach. Is not part of what Sifu Guo taught at Portsmouth Square, but I really like it because it really fits in. And in this one, I'm elongating one side and compressing the other side. Elongating the right side, compressing the left. You can do it just kind of vertically, like that. And then I like to roll my shoulders, very much like what a jazz dancer does. You can really feel as you lift up the stretching along your side. Since the next one is a four-way stretching of four directions, I like this one to kind of get myself loosened up to do that four-way stretch. That's why I inserted this stretch into the routine here. In this position here, I'm lifting the shoulder up and I'm letting the weight of the leg kind of hang down. That's why it's on the toe. And it kind of stretches in this area right in here. I find this one really loosens my body up. Again, I try to keep my head in one place, lifting on this side and pushing down, help lift. I like to roll my shoulders. So from here, I go right into the four-way stretch. The first one is the overhead stretch, and I place my feet a little bit more than shoulder width apart. I interlace the hands, and first I just reach towards the sky. On all the exercises, you will notice that the stress is on elongating the back, and elongating the back is a very crucial part of Sifu Guo's Tai Chi, keeping the back stretched out. We saw that in the universal pose, keeping the back as if a string was attached to the top of your head and stretching you from heaven was part of the practice. So in all these exercises, remember not to compress the spine as you're arching back, but to try to lift your chest up. So this first one will be a back bend. And if you're not really limber, just stretching your hands towards the sky is enough. As you get more limber, then you want to, again, from here, try not to compress the back, but lift up. On the breathing and all the exercises, just breathe as naturally as you can. On this one, I like to breathe in as you go back. When I first do it, I don't bend my knees too much. I just try to keep my legs relaxed and trying to work on lifting the chest and arching the back. Again, I'm going to go through these faster than I normally do. I like to take time when I'm doing my stretching to really feel it. But since I'm doing it as a lesson presentation, I'm going to go through the exercise much faster than I do it for time's sake. And then as I get more progress, then I start to bend my knees and arches back as much as I can. From here we go to the side to side. And in the side to side, I usually do about at least 2 shoulder widths, sometimes a little bit wider. And from here, I take this one arm and I use this hand in this kind of in the hip area, because here I'm trying to do two things. I'm stretching out the side here, and I'm working on flexibility and compression of the hip joint. The main thing is to keep the body straight forward as you bend to the side. Don't turn like that on the initial part, just straight over. No, you could hear that joint crackle and pop. On these four-way stretching, there's no set amount of the times if they're not in rotation, so you just stretch until you feel nice and loose. Again, just breathe natural. So this first we did the back bend, and then we do this side to side. I'm feeling the stretch in here and in the hip joint. I keep my legs fairly stiff, not super locked, but fairly stiff. And toes are pointed straight forward. The next one in the four-way stretch progression would be hands to the ground with legs straight. But before I do that, I like to do this one. Again, I'm showing you the ones that I kind of put in addition to Sifu stretches, because I find that they help me with the other stretches. So in this one, I'm doing the Asian squat like this. And in this squat position, I'm work on keeping the back flat at first. And I find it just loosens up the hip joint and stretches out my back. A lot of people have trouble doing the squat. Could be because your length of your leg limbs configuration, and also ankle flexibility. So in the squat position, you're working on loosening up that flexibility. On the squat, the legs are about a little more than shoulder width apart. You might find that having wider might make it easier. You can also do the squat with the legs in, and you might be able to feel more stretch by coming inside of the legs. So after I do a squat with my back flat, then I like to arch round the back, really stretch out my back. From here, I like to lift. So this is again working into the four-way stretch, like that. So in the progression of the stretching, the four-way stretch, the stretch looks like this. In the beginning, if you let your knees flex a little bit, you might be able to get a little bit more stretch. Locking your knees makes the stretch a little bit more difficult. Again, as with the other exercises, the emphasis is on keeping the back flat rather than rounding the back. The flatter the back and the more locked the knees, the more difficult the stretch is. Elongating the back is part of that chin to toe philosophy of stretching out this lower back for the kicks and flexibility. This is an alternative stretching exercise I do with a rail fence, anything low that you can grab. It helps on getting more benefit out of the four-way stretch. I do this after I do the back bend and the side to side. You do this before I do that downward one here. So what I do is I pick a level that I'm comfortable with, and I elongate my back by having the arms out. Helps to really stress elongating the back. And I do a number of extra things here. I kind of go from side to side, bending one knee, and that really kind of stretches out the hamstrings in the back, buttocks, side to side. And I go to the next level down, do the same. I like to bend down and really stretch the back out. And then I like to stretch my calves by lifting the toes. And stretch the calves by pressing down on the heels. You want to loosen the back of the legs, the hamstrings, and the calves with a four-way stretch. I like to go from the Asian squat to this hyper stretch. So I feel like doing these right before I do that last stretch on the four-way stretch. Works for me to help stretch out a lot. Also, before you do the falling stance, you can use the rail fence because the rail fence will help support your back position, and you can get a lot of benefit by doing the falling stance using the support of a rail fence or anything that you can kind of hang on to work on the falling stance. Just having that little extra support will help get your back straight in the falling stance. That's a little alternative exercise I like to do on the rail fence. And so I usually do the waist rotations, and then the hip rotations, the knee rotations, this four-way stretch, the jazz dancer, and then the falling stance. So in the falling stance, you want to be about 3 shoulder widths apart or more. Again, I've done some presentation on this low falling stance, but you want your body inside of that supporting leg. You want both knees, both feet pointing straight forward, and you want your back, again, elongated straight, and you want to be as erect as you can without bending over too much. If in the beginning you have to bend over to get more flexibility, that'd be okay. Also, you can just keep your back straight and go down however far you can to increase your flexibility. You stay in one position and work on stretching that out. When you get limber enough, you can go down. You can reach across. Down. Okay. And try to reach. Increase the flexibility. So this is working on the flexibility on your hip joints. A very important exercise in Northern Shaolin, and again, even in Guang Ping Taiji. There's a few of these drop stances. I go up and down, and then at the very end, I go back and forth, low. Okay, I think that'd be good for today. We'll go into the next exercise in the next lesson. Thank you very much.